Hello, so we can start. Welcome everyone to the workshop on to the panel on intersectional feminist and platform work. I am Mayo Fuster. I am the chair of PWIL, Cost Action. I am talking to you from Barcelona. I want to say that I had COVID last week, and I have a post-COVID impact, so I am not very focused. So sorry if you see me a bit not with a lot of concentration capacity. It's because my COVID effects. We are planning for 4 presentations. At the moment, we have 3 of them. So we can start from the first and then the others, and then we will have a debate at the end. If someone has really like something needs to clarify or something, you can put it in the chat, or otherwise you can just intervene at the end of the presentation. Otherwise, the Q&A and the debate will be at the end. So we can start with the presentation of Alexandra Tati from the École des Hautes Études de Sciences Sociales, on a presentation about environmental envisioning the future roadmap for artificial intelligence integration in feminist unionizing. So Alessandra, when you want. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayo. Well, hello, everyone. I'm Alessandra Tatic. I'm a social anthropologist and a documentary filmmaker at the University of Barcelona. Special thanks to Branca for organizing, even though she's not here, and Mayo for moderating. I'm really glad I get to meet you all today. And I'm sorry I couldn't be there in person, but I guess most people aren't there in person. My topic today is AI integration in feminist unionizing. It's a presentation derived from a 4-year study conducted during my PhD in Sin Hogar Sin Dillar, Spain's first household and care workers union. So the union gathers undocumented migrant workers, and let's first go through a few numbers to contextualize the situation. In Europe today, 1% of the population, roughly 5 million people, are illegalized by the immigration policy. But since member states depend on foreign labor, their presence is quite significant. In Barcelona alone, 1/3 of the population are foreigners. And elderly care is one of the sectors with growing needs in this city, in this country, and it has very precarized working conditions. So today in Spain, 18% of the population is over 65 years old. And by 2050, this number is likely to reach 40%. So obviously this has a lot of social and political consequences, and the issue is largely unaddressed by the authorities and the media, which obscures its urgent character and the need for adjustment on the welfare state. Yet what's problematic is the feminized quality of the sector. Care and housework are still overwhelmingly done by women, and a growing proportion happens through online platforms. So in the past 4 years, I have studied the sector through its feminist unionizing in Barcelona. As I said, I was a participant observer for 2 years in anthropology. It's a very common methodology. It means that I occupied a full-time role at the union. In my case, I was the communications officer while writing my thesis simultaneously in social anthropology. Sin Hogar is a very unique space for undocumented women where they organize their struggle for a decent living, basically. It's a space exclusively reserved for women that is located in Barcelona's feminist cultural center, La Bon. Now, the point of speaking about Sin Hogar in the context of this panel lays in their power of envisioning the future. And as a precarized labor sector, household and care workers, including those working in the platform economy, rarely have this chance to carefully define their political agency. Anthropologist Arjuna Padurai, whose work I heavily inspire on, wrote that power in society is in part defined by who has the privilege to envision and shape the future. So in this sense, workers such as the Cindy's must be primary actors in determining their labor futures through AI-driven tools as well. Yet there are many, many barriers between precarious workers and technology. I could go on about this for hours, but I will spare you that. My conclusions show that a highly precarized labor sector, such as this one, reflect on the way activism is done and naturally its impact in society and the potential of its future impact. So since workers can barely make ends meet with the types of employment they occupy, labor organizing becomes increasingly precarious itself. And even without union busters, such as we've seen in other parts of the platform economy, it's exceptionally difficult to maintain a feminist union like Cindy Ogad. So for this reason, I argue that developing an AI-driven legal aid bot trained in immigration, labor, and gender equality policy would bring fundamental change to the sector. With low IT literacy rates, speech-to-text bots are ideal interfaces for the most diverse women who could use them in their native tongues, receive answers in a variety of ways, such as spoken, video, textual, infographic, and so on. The options are endless. This application of AI in everyday activism would mean covering a larger capacity of demands for correct legal information, that is huge in practice, as well as lower burnout rates among pro bono lawyers and jurists that I've been working for years and am very familiar with their issues. So exhaustion and frustration in their line of activity are big issues. The second application would be in communication and digital marketing. I think this is capable of crafting nuanced political communication campaigns that would raise the reach of the union's online and in-person membership. And it will also allow for dynamic adjustments to feedback and optimization of engagement with the public and policymakers alike. And like for legal aid, it would lower the toll on activists in this area of work who typically have to juggle multiple jobs to sustain themselves. Overall, with AI tools designed to lower the pressure on activists to perform repetitive or often time-consuming tasks in legal aid as well as in political communication, there would be more time and energy for collective action and solidarity that brought these women together in the first place. Now, I don't mean to romanticize the potential impact of AI tools on feminist unionizing. I just wish to point out what is less spoken about. This sector of labor representation is precarized and could use a hand through the careful use of AI. So here I summarized what 4 years of research taught me on the potential and mindful use of AI-driven tools in the present and the future of feminist unionizing. These tools can enhance inclusive advocacy, but only if they're used accordingly. Thank you for your attention and feel free to reach out about potential collaboration, alliances, or ideas.
Thank you very much, Alexandra, also for the timing. Very stick to time. And now we will move to Yanis Gagnet or Damira Vaigonushova, if you are here. Are you here? It seems no. So we will move into the following presentation by Stelomir Stravok, Mira Drobreva, and Vasil Kirov, which Vasil is actually with us, on the unveiling regional e-commerce dynamics, a comparative study of Etsy, marketplace, and workers in the Balkan countries. So, Vasil, when you want, please.
Yes, thank you. How long I have for the presentation?
You have a maximum of 10 minutes.
10 minutes, okay, I'll try to be very brief. Actually, I would like to present the apologies of my colleagues, but for different reasons, they could not be with us. And I myself, after a meniscus operation, so just now presenting from my home. Yeah, so very briefly, I think we'll present recent findings about the Etsy platform in the Balkan countries. And actually, all this research started from the PhD project of Mira Dobreva. She's working under my supervision. And when she started her work on Etsy, her initial hypothesis was that women in Southeastern Europe can create a kind of decent living, can have decent income on Etsy platform because they can access large and rich markets in Northern Europe, in the US, in Canada, etc. And she made a lot of interviews, but after that, with um, my colleague Svetlomir, we decided to add other techniques, namely web scraping. I mean, you should probably be completely aware about Etsy, so no need to sell that is the largest platform selling art and handcrafted products. You can see some the data. There's a large number of sellers and really large number of buyers over the world. And for different reasons, this platform has been really under research during the last year. And it has the reputation of a female-dominated platform. So we wanted really to see data because sometimes we lack data in order to go ahead. So actually, thanks to Svetlomir Zdravkov, a name that was very difficult for us to match, we made the web scraping, and we found actually here, okay, I will not enter into debate, but we are, for example, not covering Turkey, but because we needed to dedicate a little bit more time. But there are like 50, this data is for end of 2023, about 15,000 shops, pardon. But basically most of these shops, there is just a one-man show doing this. Actually, we used like the model of GPT in order to see what is the gender of the shop owners. But these shop owners, I said, are mostly self-employed people, or like it traditionally started in North America, in Western Europe, women from middle classes that stay at home and produce nice clothes, etc. And we can see that we have like a very good accuracy in terms of seeing if the owners are male or female. And we selected a couple of variables, including gender, and I think this is the interesting part for this session, and sectionality. And actually, what is interesting, we started first with the historical development of these 15,000 shops. And you can see that it started actually really at the beginning. And already in 2010, countries like Bulgaria, Romania, and Greece began to surpass other countries. I think somebody should mute his microphone. There is a kind of echo. And actually, what is actually for the oldest and one of the best working Bulgarian shop, just to give you an illustration, the so-called shop Tattoo Socks, with more than 30,000 sales. Actually, these socks are also rather expensive. I mean, our average sale is about 25 euros. And we are expecting probably to have a strong presence on Etsy because of this hypothesis of getting to interesting markets. But actually, you can see from this graph that there are two countries that dominate the whole figure. And these are like Bulgaria and Romania. But if you take data per capita, actually Bulgaria and Slovenia will be the most well present. Because Bulgaria has like about 6 million inhabitants, and Romania about 19 million, Greece about 10 million. And you can see also the number of sales per capita. And I think that I should go now in order to keep with the 10 minutes. I should go about the gender distribution. And actually, in the gender distribution, you can see that in all the countries, shop owners are predominantly females, but there are some countries where this ratio between male and female is really important, like Moldova. In other countries, the situation is much more equal, like Montenegro. And what is also interesting is that there are less shops run by men, but those shops make a larger number of average sales. What was also interesting, for example, when discussing cases about Bulgaria, that a very large number of shops that really modest or insignificant number of sales. So probably those people have tried to do it, but for different reasons they have failed. But after that, actually, just we can say this for the Bulgarian case, according to the interviews of Mira, also kind of feeling that even if there is not enough income generation, many of these female are like symbolically very proud of their work and they want to keep it on, etc., which is really kind of paradoxical, funny. But for those that are interested, we can send some publications. And I'll pass to our last slide about the findings. Actually, there was like a steady historic growth in the number of shop openings. Not surprisingly, a peak in 2020, very probably due to the start of the pandemic, when a lot of people were supposed to be at home. And actually, it was also seen as a source of additional income, as in other research like Jourdain in France. And there is probably contrary to our expectations, there is a greater number of Etsy shops in the 3 EU member states. So 3 of the EU Balkan member states, Bulgaria, Romania, and Greece. Supposing that there will be probably a large number also from the countries of former Yugoslavia, but no. And there are different types of distribution of the Etsy shops. In some countries, they are more widespread. In others, they are concentrated in capital large cities. And actually, the gender, also from gender perspective, the gender shop ownerships are slightly lower than official Etsy statistics, about 80% female users globally for 2023 according to the platform. But as I see, surprisingly, the better sell performance of male-owned shops. So we can, I'll stop here because I think that this data speaks for itself and not enter at this stage in further interpretations, but it will be interesting to discuss with you. And of course, I'll be happy to answer all your questions, perhaps some technicalities of the web scraping, which was done by Svetlomir, as I said. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Basil. We will move into the last presentation by Kansu Setintas, Middle East Technical University in Turkey, on examining platform economy from an intersectional perspective, gig workers and gender inequality. So Kansu, when you want, please.
Hello, everyone. I would like to share my honor in taking part in this valuable event. I'm very happy to be with you today. I will give you my presentation titled Examining Platform Economy from an Intersectional Perspective, Gig Workers and Gender Inequalities. I'm a 4th-year undergraduate student in Middle East Technical University, Political Science and Public Administration Department. I think I am the youngest person in here. In my presentation plan, first, I will explain some basic concepts regarding the digital economy. Then, in order to draw a theoretical framework in a feminist critique, I will explain how patriarchal relations shape the labor market conditions. Finally, I will talk about the case studies from Turkey and the world. I think it is necessary to emphasize the importance of the issue in order to explain why we are gathered here today. According to Working Without Borders, the premise and the peril of the online gig work, which is World Bank Group's report, the online gig workforce is much larger than previously assumed, with an estimated 154 million to 435 million online gig workers around the globe. As a growing field, the impact of the gig work on the platform economy has accelerated with digitalization. The opportunities offered by digital labor platforms with their flexible working model create very suitable conditions for gig work. In the concepts part, I will mention three main concepts. The first one is digital labor platforms and how they operate. They include both web-based platform where the work is outsourced through an open call to a geographically dispersed crowd, and the location-based applications which allocate the work to individuals in a specific geographical area, typically to perform local service-oriented tasks such as driving, running errands, or cleaning houses. An on-demand economy is a perfect concept to explain how those platforms operating in those sectors and how platforms provide consumers with the ability to gain almost instant access to goods and services using the web or a smartphone application. And the most important part in this slide, the word of gig is a term used in the music. It comes from music industry, and it's used to describe the short-term jobs. Gig work is not directly linked to the platform economy because short-term jobs exist before the digital labor platforms. However, it has become a rapidly rising trend with the digitalized economy and the online platforms that make it easy to access short-term jobs. In this slide, you can see the classification of the digital labor platforms in the two basic categories. While cloud-based refers to jobs performed entirely on the web, and on the other hand, location jobs are considered within the scope of gig work. I think it is a useful content in terms of providing a general framework of the digital labor platforms. Before drawing attention to gender distinction in the gig work, it is necessary to make a general assessment of the labor market conditions in a general sense. I think this concept of the sexual division of labor is a critical here. Sexual division of labor refers to allocation of different tasks and roles based on sex, rooted in traditional gender norms observed across various cultures and historical periods. This concept, based on the social division of labor in which women are assigned to unpaid domestic labor while men are wage laborers. And the intersectional analysis comes from an important part, which includes it may be arise from intervened social categories, and inequalities might deepened by age, class, and gender context can be experienced intersectionally in the labor market conditions. And I want to use as an example for informal labor. Informal labor is a form of work which all workers may be deprived of their most basic rights and they work without legal security, and it may involve negative conditions for everyone who works regardless of their gender. However, a woman or gender minority may be subjected to a more severe labor exploitation due to overlapping capitalism and the patriarchal discrimination. In addition, immigrant or minority groups, which is a very general topic in our politics, may have to work in conditions exacerbated by social discrimination and racism. In this study, we will discuss the potential problems of gig work from an intersectional perspective. I would like to talk about the research that examines the platforms with a gender dimension on a global scale. In a research conducted by the Fair Work, it examines the gender aspect of the platform. It highlights platforms fail to guarantee a living wage and their lack of safe working conditions, and they do not addressing gender-based discrimination in their model. In addition, entrenched gender-based discrimination and harassment is an important part of this study. And as a consequence, few women and gender minorities can participate in location-based digital platforms, which I will mention in the Turkish case part. Another study I would like to mention is the Gender and the Gig Economy Critical Steps for Evidence-Based Policy, prepared by Abigail Hunt and Emma Sema working paper, highlights the intersectionality of the class and gender issues. Disadvantages related to poverty and intersecting inequalities part, they cite that women who face poverty and intersecting inequalities, such as race, ethnicity, age, disability, and geographic location, may experience additional barriers in accessing and benefiting from gig work. And the second part, they indicate that home-based gig work, while offering flexibility, can also lead to isolation, poor working conditions, and challenges in organizing with other workers, similar to issues faced by women in traditional sectors. In the Turkish case, unfortunately, there is no comprehensive intersectional study on experiences of gig workers in Turkey. The fact that the number of research on this field is very low and the existing studies lack of an intersectional examination, and it makes it difficult to conduct a research in the specific area. Hopefully, I find an academic article titled "You Ensure Your Own Safety, Gender, Fear, and Tourism Labor in the Gig Economy in Turkey" is a quite new, published on March 18, 2024. In the article, the gig work experiences of micro-entrepreneur women working in the tourism sector in Istanbul are conveyed. They conducted in-depth interviews with a total of 10 participants. The main argument of the article is that platforms in the gig economy can both offer opportunities for gender equality by providing flexibility and autonomy, but they can also reinforce gender inequalities through safety concern, discrimination, and limited control over work conditions. Also, it indicated precarious conditions of gig workers in digital platforms. Platform workers, who often categorized as employed contractors, I think I want to raise a question about this part, may find themselves in a precarious circumstances due to factors such as anonymity afforded to clients, lack of formal assistance of platforms, and reluctance of platforms to address incidents of gender-based violence. Additionally, women in the platform economy, including the tourism sector, often face safety-related challenges. They may be exposed to gender-based bias, discrimination, and abuse in this sector, with limited support mechanism in place to address these issues. Overall, the article emphasized the complex interplay between gender, fear, safety, and labor relations in gig economy within the tourism sector, particularly in the context of Turkey. The study calls for a deeper understanding of these dynamics to address challenges and promote gender equality and safety for platform workers in evolving tourism landscape. In conclusion part, I want to summarize my points in a policy recommendation part. In particular, the lack of a legal framework of the platform economy in Turkey negatively affects all platform workers, but it reproduced the disadvantaged positions of the women and gender minorities who experience more deeply the unequal market conditions that exist together with an intersection analysis. This is my main point. And also, those platforms should provide support mechanisms for gender-based discrimination and violence to the service provision, and they should prevent sectoral segregation in gig work. And in the last part, in the future research, they should focus on the inequalities in terms of age, race, disability, and gender should be taken into account as a main perspective. Thanks for listening. This is my references.
Thank you very much, Consu, also for the timing. It was all of you who have been perfect. So we can start with the Q&A.
There's a lag, but I'll ask a few questions. I hope you can hear me. A question for Vasil. I was wondering about the cost of shipping and export taxes as variables in your research, whether you took this into account when you were comparing non-EU and EU countries regarding Etsy. And another question for Chansu, about tourism labor in the tourist sector. So what exactly, could you give us examples of the sort of activities that are done through platforms in this sense? Thank you.
Thanks, Alexandra, for the question. It's a really good question. Actually, I told you that we made a web scraping, so in this we are taking data from the platform itself. We should check in further research. I'm not sure if shipping costs are much bigger if you ship something from, I don't know, from Serbia to Norway compared to from Bulgaria to Norway, but who knows? I mean, yeah, it will be interesting to check. There are many other questions related to Etsy because well, for part of I thought that I'll go probably to some elements of interpretation, but actually, we know that from previous literature that very often females, large proportion of females on Etsy are, for example, mothers of small children, on maternity leave, etc., or women that combine these activities with other activities of care for children or for other person that can dedicate much less time for producing for the platform, etc. Actually, also we know here from interviews that English language can be an important factor for, because part of the communication is basically in English. So those people that don't know, don't master, and or don't have somebody at home to help them are excluded. Okay, they're probably included in other national-based platforms, etc. But it's again, I mean, it should be interesting to see what are the reasons. But yeah, I'll stop here.
Maybe
Okay.
I mention about my part. In the article, they basically talk about the accommodation services of the small entrepreneurship. It's treated as a micro entrepreneurship. Maybe you have a room or maybe you have a little apartment. You can retail those homes and etc. And those women use these platforms to gather tourists in the Istanbul, and they share their experiences, mostly safety experiences, because they come from another place and they stay up all night. But when they have an incident or problem, they couldn't say anything for the platform, or there is no legal responsibility of course, in some extent, and they shared these problems in that context.
Thank you. Susanna, Alan, please.
Yes, I have a question for Alessandra. Thank you really for your presentation. I don't think it's very common to have from feminist scholarship optimistic perspectives on AI. No? And yesterday we were hearing about in the keynote by Mark Graham how he referred to AI as an extraction machine. We also hear how it will destroy humanity. So I would be very interested in hearing more about what you mean by a mindful use of AI. And also with regard to your research, if working with CNVR, you did experiment with the use of AI, or whether your contribution has more to do with the theoretical future use of these tools. Thank you.
Thank you for the question, Susanna. So yeah, I did experiment with communication, since I was the communications officer in a team with 2 other people and then with 4 other people. I used a lot of AI tools to figure out how much more work I could get done with them as compared to the previous years when we didn't have access to these tools. And the personal experience was really shocking. Like I could get work done probably for a whole team of communications officers. And the learning curve is quite steep. So I didn't really manage to, in the self-managed conditions. I mean, I'm quite sure you're familiar with Cindy Ogad. Everything self-managed, so relies on mostly on volunteer work, and we have to self-train with all the new tools that we want to use, and then train the community if we want to democratize these tools. And since I was, I mean, have intersectional issues in my own life, I couldn't dedicate that many hours a week to democratizing these tools, but I think it will be a really interesting pilot project to train an entire communications team and see how it goes in terms of campaigning, because as I saw, a lot more can get done with that, and with very little budgets in digital marketing. Actually, we started investing very, very little sums in promoting the content that I created with AI tools, and our reach exploded. So, I mean, we doubled engagement and following in within a year. So, those were the most tangible results I can talk about. And the AI, the legal aid bot, we never did anything like it, but I did work on a few H2020 proposals with consortium members from around Europe, where we were trying to develop a model for a project like that. And I worked with some AI engineers on it, so I can't really talk about the details. I don't really understand the technicality behind the language learning models, but they said that privacy wasn't really an issue because there are ways of destroying the private data that would be collected through the bot. And what really got me interested and passionate about this, and what makes me optimistic, is that I've been working with illiterate women for a really long time now. I started in 2017. And this kind of tools would revolutionize their access to information, right? If you arrive to a new country, you don't speak a word of the local language, you don't have a network, or you have a network of people from your ethnic group who can't really help you get meaningful information, then having access to a tool like this can be crucial, right? That you can just click a button, input, say to the bot whatever you want to ask, and get an answer in your own language. This is really, really huge in my perspective as a feminist activist. And yeah, that's it. I think I responded to the questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Alessandra. Basil?
Yes, I have a question to Alexandra. And actually, you mentioned just 2 minutes ago that you was involved in Horizon Europe for the preparation of Horizon Europe proposals. I was interested how you can contextualize the case that you presented in Barcelona compared to other cases in other EU countries. Because I think that even within the cost action, there are some colleagues that are working on the platforms for care. Like there was don't forget, I forgot the name, but there was a colleague from Ireland. Yeah. So is it kind of unique experience, or there are similar cases?
Do you mean feminist unionizing in the care sector, or you mean the use of AI tools, or both?
Both.
Okay. So feminist unionizing in the platform economy, and in general in Spain, it's pretty, I guess I get to be optimistic because I've been here for a while and I see all these great social movements emerging and sustaining themselves and collaborating. And obviously there's a lot of, since this is a panel on intersectionality, I think it's good to mention that there are a lot of issues within the feminist movement in terms of racism and classism, right? I mean, positioning the struggle of racialized and underprivileged women in every possible sense within the landscape of very dominant white Catalan feminism is an issue in itself, right? So this is a struggle that is quite difficult to keep up with. And despite that, interesting stuff is happening. So I hope that this will, these kind of grassroots movements don't really have the resources to expand on a European level and let alone on a global level, but these women all have, a lot of them have activist backgrounds in their countries of origin. So I think that these initiatives are traveling more transatlantically to Latin America and to Central America, because we have more and more communication with local and indigenous feminist organizations from Central and Latin America. So in this sense, it's interesting how it's not spreading across Europe, but it's spreading through the ethnic origins of the women involved. And yeah, I think probably Ireland is a good example of unionizing and of public intellectual work in this in the platform economy. So I have been following their work, and I think I know who you mean when you mentioned the colleague from Ireland. But yeah, I think it would be interesting to have a platform. I mean, a platform like a network, not a platform in the economic sense, a network to talk with people from different countries and see if we could get somewhere in terms of networking, because as I mentioned in the presentation, this is a very precarious sector, and whoever gets to do activism in this sector already means that they have a minimum of privilege that allows them to not earn money during the hours that they are involved in union work, right? So this is a big topic as well.
There's someone else who would like to make a question?
Yeah, hi.
Rostov? Yeah.
Vasil, this question is for you. So I was not able to see the table that you showed with the distribution of female shops on Etsy. So did you finish the analysis in terms of gender per countries and per niches, or I just didn't hear well? So could you, for example, describe what are the specific traits in terms of services that women in certain countries pick compared to other services on Etsy in other countries?
I'm not sure. Can you repeat, because there was some noise and I was not. You want me to show again the graph and to say what are the activities? No.
So I was wondering if you basically managed to identify patterns by countries and gender. So I was not sure that I saw the table well. I just saw that there was like a distribution for Etsy shops per countries, right? But did you manage to go further and to see what kind of services women identify in certain countries in the region that you covered? Have you seen any differences or similarities?
We haven't still done this analysis according to the activities, to the different type of, actually not services, because it's not a service, it's a production of different. But yeah, as I said, firstly, there is a clear difference between three countries where there is a large concentration of shops. So from 15,000 shops, you have, for example, more than 5,000 that in Bulgaria. So there are shops in Bulgaria, Romania, and Greece. Second, as I said, there are differences there are differences in terms of sales, but we need to go further. Actually, this data was scrapped just last month. we need to continue with the analysis. We need to see, because sometimes it's not just the number of cells, but what is interesting is to compare the number of cells with the volume, with the value of cells, because you can have a large number of cells of small items that cost a small number, so it, of course, it affects the turnover. But we have all these, so this type of analysis is possible. And I think it's an interesting, what to say, interesting suggestion for the continuation of this work. Because, of course, it's, as I said, it's a work of progress. And anyway, there hasn't been, to our knowledge, there hasn't been similar exercise on ETSI platform for other regions. There was a kind of interesting study, but just focused on France, with kind of more limited web scraping. So I think that this, of course, we need now to go further into to make some crosses, and after that, of course, most importantly, to interpret them.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Any more questions? Otherwise, I will do a question myself. So to Kansu, please. Kansu, because you were referring to gender-based violence. If you can expand a bit more on the data that you have, or the observation of the typology of violence that happened through this type of work.
In the study, in the general sense, they talk about mostly safety-related issues in the face-to-face, but also through a digital harassment part in the study, and they indicated that those problems in that sense, both virtually and both in two sense.
Then I have actually more questions to Alexandra. Actually, I have the same question to Basil, to both of you, because you have presented the gender analysis, but could you elaborate a bit more how you incorporate the intersectional analysis with which other variables, and how did you perform the analysis?
I'm an anthropologist. We don't really deal with a lot of variables. So the methodology is very different. It's ethnography, it's long-term immersive work. So my work is intersectional to the extent to which Sin Hogar is an intersectional institution, right? Because it groups women who are undocumented, racialized, from very different backgrounds, educational statuses, and they all have unstable residence status in Spain. So this all intersects into very problematic personal situations. And when you have a group of women with a variety of issues like that, then it creates a very specific context for activism and for unionizing. So I would say that the variables intersect in that way.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, that in the analysis that we just presented, there are some limitations, and of course we cannot go beyond what we can extract. And I think that here what is important, as I said, for example, my colleague Mira did a lot of interviews here, to continue to combine methods, to use mixed methods, so in order to be able to capture this aspect of intersectionality. I'll just say that, for example, we're interested in the Bulgarian case about regional distribution, because there are some shops that are concentrated in, for example, in Central South Bulgaria, particular minority called the Pomaks. It's a little bit like the Bosniaks. It's like a Slavonic ethnicity, which is Muslim religion, and there are these aspects, but we don't have, for example, in the Bulgarian case, we don't have still. I mean, especially in the IT case. Migrant people, etc. Anyway, immigration is quite a recent phenomenon and probably concentrated in other sectors. But yes, this in order to basically also according to the interviews in Mira, finally there are, except probably these regional differences, there are not so many big surprises. Basically, finally, because of the language, because of the time, because of the need for digital skills, it's finally most of those women that are engaged on Etsy platform in Bulgaria, the region, are also, I mean, from the middle classes. No surprise here.
Okay, thank you.
Actually, I need it because, of course, here it's a very specific case. Because I think the identity of those women is also very complex. Many of them consider themselves like kind of entrepreneurs, even if probably their incomes objectively their activity does not lead to, I mean, to any decent incomes or working conditions, but they have different. This is also probably interesting avenue for future research. They have some groups for self-help, for exchange of information on Facebook mainly. Interesting probably to follow those exchanges, but of course those are very, very far away from traditional unions or from traditional channels of representation and voice.
It's great that you mentioned this, Vasil. It's really interesting because a lot of movements do start through Facebook groups. So I hope that it will turn into something more institutionalized.
Any more questions? Yes. Prosto?
Just to say, Vasil, like for example, in Serbia, a lot of women were coming to Etsy because when they got pregnant, they were not able to perform. I mean, they were able to perform their work, but they were sacked off, and because they lost their job, that's why they decided to go into that. And they were not members of some. I mean, they were members of Facebook groups, but they were also members of some, let's say, groups of artists. So this is how they organized, and that is how they both had exhibition of their work in terms of fairs or something like that. In space, and then but they mostly earned from Etsy because they found out that this is the only way how they can earn for living, or at least to add to their budget, and they were also seeing themselves as entrepreneurs.
Thank you. Any more questions?
Maya, I have a question for Alessandra.
Okay.
Alessandra, I'm not really sure that I understood well. When it comes to your bot, are you now in the phase of proof of concept, or you're just like collecting data, working with the developer and thinking how to make this architecture really work?
So yeah, there were two stages of development of this project that never happened until now. So we wrote two different H2020 proposals that both got rejected, and the bot was just a small part of the overall project, which dealt with care workers' well-being on a European level. And we thought that a bot would be a good addition to enhancing their well-being through accurate information access. And so we went through. I mean, the project has been written and rewritten, and now it's stuck at this stage. So if you want to talk about it more, I'd be happy. I'd be happy to.
one innovation fund will solve everything, a grant.
Yeah. No, I mean, I've been meeting some people here in Barcelona recently who deal with AI on a very high level, but in corporate work. And I figure out that there are a lot of these people who would really appreciate working on a socially responsible project in that industry. So I've been thinking about that. And also, I mean, you got to politicize them a lot to put them in a position where they're going to want to do pro bono work for a while until the project goes through. But I think it's there is some room for work.
Questions? Because I actually have a question to Basil. Basil, you say that you collect the data through web scraping. Which program did you use, or if you program scrap, do you share it as open source or in any way? Like so, it could be also an outcome as a methodological data collection methodological resource. And how did you code the gender, like by the name or because it was gender specify, or how did you do it?
Sorry, I need to just put my macro. Yes, I said at the beginning we used Selenium Python as a program. We haven't actually considered the issue, but probably at some moment we could be happy to share the data, but we are at the moment preparing publication, so this sharing probably we wait for a couple of months. But we don't actually, it's an issue that we should probably develop here at our institute and most of the research centers in Bulgaria. On the one hand, strong push from the European Commission for open science, etc. We need also to build the structure for this. Of course, while scrapping, and as I said, if you have very technical questions, Svetlomir will be able to answer them, but we, of course, comply with the scrapping rules of the platform, so that we haven't done anything that is against those rules. And after that, we used natural language, and we used basically the ChatGPT in order, yes, to code through names, because we had like the names of the shop owners. And as I said, the accuracy in this case is about 95%, which is, I think, for this exercise, is quite good. But yes, we have like enormous table that was passing, and like you had one moment like an additional column with the gender identification according to the name. We know that in some languages, for example, there could be a name that is both male and female, etc. But yes, it's. I don't think there are other more accurate ways. Of course, it could be like for such like big databases, large databases.
Okay. If there are no more questions, I think we can leave it here. Thank you very much for the three of you for presenting. And I hope you continue enjoying the Congress. And I encourage everyone to apply for being member of PWIL, which is a cost action, which actually is supporting this conference and other events during the year, and can provide also funding for going to conferences or stays for visit, and it's very much focusing to the topic of this panel. So I think all of you would enjoy the exchange. So the website is PWIL, and and I encourage you to become a member and follow the collaboration there. So thank you very much for everyone, and see you soon.
Thank you, Maya. Thank you, colleagues. And yeah,
Thank you.
yeah, good continuation in Berberate.
Yeah, freewill.eu, as Blanca said. Thank you.
Perfect.
Bye.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.